The early Christian church practiced this sort of radical egalitarianism, one where everything was shared completely within the group, an ideal that carried on to the love feasts that were the main focus of celebration before the more bishop-oriented church came in and changed everything. A part of this was a reclamation of certain ideas that had been reserved for just a few, and showing how they applied to all of us. In the Epistle of Peter, we are told that we are a royal priesthood. We are told in the Epistle to the Hebrews that we are a priesthood of the order of Melchizedek, both kings and priests. This idea of nobility, once reserved to a select few, that would eventually be again collected into the hands of just a few, was originally seen as the birthright of all believers. It's too easy for us to forget our royal person. So today, as we're getting ready for the third quarter moon, which we dedicate to the Via Positiva, let's have a conversation and really think about our own royal priesthood and our royal personhood as we walk together down creation's path. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan druid and priest of Bridget.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christopagan druid and sous chef to the Dagda.
Today, we're going to be going into, I think, one of the lost themes of the Via Positiva, just because I don't see a lot of people talking about it, but it is right there in Original Blessing, our royal personhood, the basic dignity that we are all born into as images of the divine. But before we get into all that, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever app you're listening to us on. We do 5 original Christopagan and Druid episodes Monday through Friday. You know what is the thing? So we got a lot of fun stuff coming up. All right, let's just jump into it now, shall we?
Let us start with an invocation to welcome in this third quarter moon. A crown of life, a blessing from our birth, a crown of rejoicing as a blessing for our lives, a crown of victory as a blessing for living in truth. May the living crown bestow strength upon us. May the rejoicing crown bestow joy within us. May the imperishable crown bestow courage through us. Our strength arises from our honest life. Our joy arises from our love and support of others. Our courage arises from our strength to live our soul's life. Let us be ever honest in our life, our love, and ourselves. Let us be ever true in our support, care, and service to others. Let us be ever rooted in our calling, work, and identity.
Those are the opening words, the invocation to this week's Moon Devotional, which you can find over at CreationsPaths.com. Yeah, these 3 crowns, there are actually 4 in the original text, but 2 of them kind of appear to be referring to the same thing. So whether you say 3 or 4 is up to you.
Also, being druids and fans of triads.
Yeah, I kind of like 3, but they're all found in the letters of Paul, with one of them actually being found in Pseudo-Paul, and that one seems to be referring to one that's actually mentioned by Paul himself.
These earlier episodes about our feelings about Pseudo-Paul.
Yeah, we don't really rock with Pseudo-Paul all that well. But if you want to see the full practice as well as the meditation, which we're going to talk about a little bit in this episode, just head over to CreationsPaths.com. There'll be a link in the show notes to take you right to the article. You can read it all there for yourself. We have this idea of our basic dignity, our royal personhood, as Matthew Fox terms it. I think it's a really important thing for us to
Reconnect?
Yeah, reconnect.
Reconnect into.
I was thinking like immerse ourselves in. Like, I'm not sure exactly what the right language is here, because I feel like this is something that we need to learn to swim in. It's something that we need to breathe like air and drink like water, because when we forget our own dignity, when we forget the royal personhood that we have by nature of our birth, and that's every single one of us, it's easier for people to trick us into thinking that they are special and we are somehow subordinate to them.
It's also a path that lets us live not in right relationship with ourselves. When we lose sight of that fact, we not only can put ourselves into subordinate places or allow ourselves to be tricked into subordinate positions when we aren't supposed to be, but we can open ourselves up to others manipulating ourselves into a subjective state where we think that because we don't have this royal personhood, we can think that we deserve bad stuff when we're getting bad stuff.
With it, we should follow other people's lead. Like,
Yeah.
I think the two biggest problems that we have in our world is one, and it's one that we talk about a lot, is our misunderstanding of humility. Like humility, filling the space that you need to fill, given the abilities and strengths that you have, but also this idea that we always need a leader. Sometimes we do need a facilitator or a coordinator. We need somebody who can make sure that things are allocated, that people aren't doubling up on the same tasks. So yeah, I could see a place for a facilitator. I can see a place for somebody who can make sure that resources are allocated in all of the right places. But there are very, very few places and instances in life where you actually need a leader. And it's this blinding of ourselves to this idea that leadership is something that we should expect from others and not from ourselves, that really causes our lives to go astray. It's the root of a lot of other problems that we get into, both within the church and just in our political life, our social life, and what have you. This idea that we need somebody to tell us how to live, how to do things, how to get along, that isn't something real in most aspects of our life.
It's an abdication of responsibility. And in such, it allows us to make folly choices because we no longer have taken responsibility for choices that we make. Psychologically speaking, it's a very dangerous place to put oneself into, but it's also a very comfortable and alluring place because when you're following, you don't have to make choices. You just have to execute orders. But that thoughtlessness is so dangerous and harmful.
And it can be harmful in small ways and in big ways. I think of the No Kings protests that just happened, and I really wrestled with the writing of this devotional so close to No Kings. We're having the No Kings protests, and here I am talking about everyone having a royal personhood, but they're so interconnected because, yeah, we have no kings because everyone's a king. Everyone's a queen. Every one of us has this royal lineage within us, that we are all capable of greatness, that we all have dignity. And I want to say that phrase again because you'll see why in a second, but we get this wrong in our wording. I get very particular about wording sometimes, and I think it confuses people, but we all have dignity. We don't deserve it. You don't earn dignity. You don't deserve dignity. You have dignity as a function of your birth. And when you start letting people use phrases like deserved or earn, which I have heard in many circles in my life, that somebody has to earn their respect, they have to earn their dignity, or they don't deserve the same dignity as others. That is truly, truly the path to the dark side. That is a tool of the other side to subjugate others. Because when you say anyone is not deserving of their own inherent dignity, a human being is a human being is a human being. A life is a life is a life is a life. And when you are willing to say, oh, but I'm going to make a special carve out here because of where somebody was born or the circumstances of someone's birth or the gender preference that they have in relationships, or you're really trying to rob them of their dignity. You're not trying to show them how they can earn or deserve to have it.
It really is putting the cart before the horse. That respect is something that all of us should be automatically giving to each other, to finish that thought. But it starts with the individual self. The right relationship with all of our other fellow humans is giving that respect, recognizing that inherent priesthood, that dignity in the other human, and giving them that respect, and then going from there. We know time and time again from looking at all these fields of study in rehabilitation of fellow humans who, through all aspects of rehabilitation. It starts with when somebody gives them that respect and recognizes that dignity, that gives them a spark. The other person, the one who might not be acting respectable or acting out of dignity, it sparks that back in them. And that is really the beginning of that healing process. From that point, they can start making better choices. They can start the healing process. They can free themselves from whatever thought process or chemical product or whatever has enslaved them, cult, whatever it is. They can then start empowering themselves and reconnect to their own dignity and step out.
It really shows how far we've fallen from this idea that every person has an inherent dignity or self-worth, that we have entire industries now built around self-empowerment, self-actualization, of learning to develop our self-esteem, all of which come out of this one key aspect that when we look again at the scriptures is something that we are just supposed to have. It is inherent in us from our birth. It's something that every individual has. You don't earn it. You don't win it. You don't achieve it through some action. It is just something that you have. It is just when an industry crops up, whether after something's been taken away or in response to something having been stolen from us, the biggest problem that we have is that industry has to make sure that you still need it. Very few industries want to put themselves out of business. So a self-empowerment guru or a self-esteem workshop, for the most part, is not in the business of getting you fully up and on your feet and fully operational again. Because if you are, you're not going to keep buying product from them. And this is where we need to be very careful, and why it's very important that we look at things like therapy, like any ministry that anyone engages in, as an act of service and not as a business. Because when we start making these things into businesses, the goal is no longer wellness, it's no longer wholeness. The goal is continued sales. You can see this through all of the get rich quick schemes and self-esteem seminars that are out there that are just enough to play the right music and give you the right speeches to get you pumped up, so that while you're there, you can feel it like, yeah, I feel it. I feel it. Then when you go out into your daily life and that's not there, it gets whisked away from you again by this kind of soul crushing machine that we created. They haven't actually taught tools to help you hold on to and maintain and generate that for yourself. And so you have to go back to the well and you have to pay them again and go through that hype cycle again. That's really what it is. It's less about teaching people self-esteem or their own inherent dignity or worth than it is a hype cycle that, well, all hype fades. All hype fades. And well, I'm not going to discount how soul crushing so much of our world is designed to be, so that people will stay subservient and willing to follow and put up with the things that the wealthy and powerful and greedy want them to put up with. The real goal here is to learn how to generate this internally. And the sad part is, the real answer is just realize you have worth.
There was a period there for a while where I had been teased, I guess you could say, or there was a little subtle joke amongst a bunch of coworkers. They did use the term widowmaker, but it was more as in I was a destroyer of relationships. Now, this was said in all love and bothered me at first because that's not a good title to really, nobody really wants to be the destroyer of relationships, especially as somebody who loves love like me.
Brian loves love.
I'm a diehard romantic at heart. I love a good romance story. When I looked closer at it and realized that, first of all, they were saying that in love and they meant it with earnestly, but also as in gratitude. It was meant in gratitude because a lot of those individuals, when they first entered my life, they were in toxic relationships. They were in a position of enslavement in their life. And through first giving them that respect and then getting them to recognize their inherent priesthood, their dignity, and getting that spark to awaken in them, they realized their self-worth. Most relationships, most of those toxic relationships, I should say, because they were all toxic, ended. They were done. The other party did not want to live in right relationship with them. They wanted a slave to conveniently be in their life. A couple instances, the relationship got really good and the other party changed as well. And both were able to have quite lovely, happy lives together. But most of them ended quite abruptly. Those individuals that stepped up have definitely lived better lives since then because they were able to recognize when they were compromising themselves, when they were being tricked into bad choices. And it all starts with that initial spark.
And it sounds flippant when I say something like, you just have to realize that you have dignity. I get how that sounds. And I know how hollow that can feel as somebody who has struggled with self-esteem my entire life. But you have to remember those struggles that you're having are actually with past trauma, not with your own self-worth, not with your own dignity. They're struggles with memories and with trauma that you have to process and work through. And that takes time. So when I say something that sounds flippant, like just realize you have dignity, know that, yeah, you're going to have to remind yourself every day. This is where daily affirmations become very important. Having that place where you can go to and remember who and what you are. It's why we recommend the Druidic practice of the light body. As we lovingly like to joke, remembering that we are what Yoda said. No beings are we, not this crude matter, right? That we really realize that we are more than just our limitations or our history or the things that have been put upon us. And that's one of the things that's offered in this moon meditation is a version of the Dzogchen practice of Kogal. But if that doesn't mean anything to you, that's fine. Just explaining that for people who may have traveled down that road before. What this practice is, it's simply taking a little bit of time. It could just be a breath, a couple breaths. It could be an hour-long meditation if you feel like it, of getting yourself into that peaceful ground state, that mindful state, and then reminding yourself that you have dignity, whether that's through imagining a crown of light, a crown of rainbow, a crown of dawn on your head, or through just giving yourself that affirmation that this is who I am, that I am a person with inherent dignity, with inherent worth, and just letting yourself sit in that. Because sometimes we have to remind ourselves every day, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. That's what it takes sometimes to get yourself to a place where you actually believe it. And if you want to see that full practice, it is in the post over at CreationsPaths.com.
Yep. And the beauty of it, like you said, you can do that just standing in line for a couple minutes. It doesn't take much at all to do. It can be as short or as long as you want. And remembering that it's a journey. Like any hero's cycle, it has ups and downs, dark times and light times. I was just sitting here remembering one of those individuals that I had helped out. I thought I had failed them at first because they were struggling with addiction when they first came into my life. And I had treated them with respect, even though everything that was going on, and helped them to recognize that dignity, even though there were times I questioned whether or not they recognized it, but it was a struggle. And they went for a bad turn for a while there. It was time for them to step out of my life, at least. And they went about continuing their journey, but they remembered that spark was still there. That ember was still burning. And eventually it caught fire and they got themselves cleaned up and they got themselves back on track. And with their dignity, were able to step out and empower themselves and come back around. I ran into them a couple years later and they thanked me and gave me a hug and shared a bunch of stories about their journey after they had to leave. It was really a nice reminder that it really is a process. It starts there.
And that's why we like to use the metaphor of the garden, that all you can do is plant the seed and tend it and help it to grow and to do your best to take the weeds out of the way so that it can grow. And sometimes it's going to be like Jack and the Beanstalk. You're going to plant it and you're going to get up the next day and wow, that goes up into the clouds, up into the realm of the giants. And sometimes it's going to be like when we planted the sunchokes. Because as with everything in life, the best things rarely come easily. And this is one of the things that should, by the way. I don't want you to think I'm saying that We have to struggle for our self-esteem, our sense of dignity
Goes back to
inherently.
this is part of the promise of the,
Yeah.
I did not mispronunciate. We're calling it kingdom now. It's a kingdom because no kings. But it's part of the promise of the kingdom. If each of us would just show each other that respect, recognizing that inherent royal priesthood and dignity in ourselves and in the others around us, living in right relationship with each other, more of us that do it, the easier it gets for everybody, the better it gets for everybody.
Because we have an entire world that is based on old feudal structures. And this to me is the great lie of the modern world is we like to pretend that we got rid of the kings and queens, and we did not. We changed their names. They're now CEOs and
Lords and ladies became bosses.
Yeah, lords and ladies
And
became the bosses.
presidents.
And we
CEOs.
changed the titles, and we changed what they were the domain of. No longer do we have the landed gentry, but we have the corporate gentry. And we just changed one set of masters for another set of masters until we learn to throw off the yoke of all masters. It's going to be a problem. Like eventually we're going to have to wake up and actually build an egalitarian society, actually build a society where we actually strive for equity, which means that we are actually making sure that everyone really does have a chance. It's that wonderful meme that goes around every now and then that shows the difference between equity, freedom, and equality, and shows the kids with the boxes looking over the fence. And like the real goal is to get rid of the fence. If we don't have that fence there, then we don't need the boxes because everybody can move back and forth. But until we get rid of those barriers, until we get rid of those fences, this is something we're going to struggle with. But it is a world that we can get to, and it is a world that we can continuously work towards. So tomorrow, under the light of the third quarter moon, or whenever you want to do it, I really want to stress that because I've heard from a couple of people about how, well, they missed that moon phase, so I guess they can't do the practice. These are universal practices for the 4 paths. It's just we dedicate a path to each of the moon phase, each of the quarter moon phases. So we're sharing them with the moon phase. You can do them anytime you need a little Via Positiva or Negativa or Transformativa in your life.
I get it. I'm of that kind of mindset where I'm like, oh no, had to be on this day. And I have to just remind myself that, yes, that might be ideal, but what is also good is just doing the practice.
Yes.
That is way better than not doing the practice. Yeah.
But you can head over to CreationsPaths.com and you can find the entire article, including an essay that I wrote that is a little bit more forceful than the words I gave today. But I've been having some health struggles lately, and I just don't have the energy to be as loud and stressed as I do when I'm typing. But you can find the meditation essay in there as well as the full practice and the prayers over at CreationsPaths.com. We'll put a link to that in the show notes for you. But I'd love to know what you think about this. What are your thoughts on the inherent dignity of really all life? If we can at least get started with seeing the dignity with life and then broaden out from there, I think that's a huge start. You can let us know in the comments. If you're listening to us on YouTube, Spotify, or CreationsPaths.com, you can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say you can leave a comment, they don't notify us, so we won't know. But you can leave a comment there anyway, because engagement is magic. And then head over to CreationsPaths.com, click on chat, and you can leave a message there, and we will see it, and we will be able to get back to you. While you're there, if you happen to have a few dollars, you can pass our way. We offer monthly and annual memberships. You can also support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I am CE Dorset on both, and you can support us using the Cash App hashtag CreationsPaths. Thank you to everybody who does that. We are ever so grateful. Thank you so much. You all really do help us keep the lights on, keep a roof over our head, and food on our table. If we've ever said anything that's helped you out, please share it with others. That helps us out more than you know. And as we're heading out today, I feel like the only person to properly pray to is our Blessed Mother Mary. Oh, Blessed Mother, who reminds us in your Magnificat that God is the one that casts down the thrones and sends the rich away empty, and who lifts up the poor, the downtrodden, and those who have been crushed under the weight of so many ambitions. Help us to remember our own inherent worth, so that when the angel comes to us and says, "You shall give birth to the Son of the Most High," we, like you, can say, "Let it be." because we know who we are and we know the worth of ourselves. And we know that we are all capable of bringing the Christ into this world to bring that peace, healing, wisdom, and justice into this world in all of its glory. Amen.
Amen.